All right, well, it's good to be back another week. We're all going through difficult challenges right now with the coronavirus, and many of us perhaps being quarantined or stuck inside. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. This quote came to mind. It's something that it's a few years old now, but it's from a prominent blogger who I enjoy to read, Doug Wills. He said, "When we have a trouble and have been praying urgently for deliverance, we should view every day without that deliverance as just another bucket of water on the altar, so that when the fire falls, God will receive greater glory." Another bucket of water on the altar. He's of course referring to the story with Elijah and the prophets of Baal from 1 Kings 18. And records that awesome story of when they're basically having a contest of whose God is going to show up and deliver the people, who is going to show up and rescue, who, and in other words, it was basically a contest of whose God's actually out there listening, whose God can do something about the trouble, and it was set up as a contest. So there was all of these prophets of Baal teaching the children of Israel that Baal was God, and Elijah was saying, no, the Lord is God. And so there was this contest. And just to emphasize the point, the contest, it was set up so that they both built altars, they covered it with the sacrifices, surrounded it with wood, and the idea was whichever God would answer the call would have to drop fire down from the sky and consume the sacrifice. And the cool thing about the way Elijah went about it is he really wanted the people of Israel to know this is your God, this is the true God, this is who rescued you out of the land of Egypt. And so he started drenching the wood with water. The story tells us he brought 12 buckets of water and he drenches the wood, probably signifying a bucket for each of the tribes of Israel. So he's really stacking the odds against himself, right? Drenched wood doesn't burn, and we all know this. It's funny. I once talked with a friend a long time ago, and this actually used to be a song lyric back in the day. Let the fire of God fall, and he kind of was like skeptical. He's like, when does that ever actually happen? And the truth is, it doesn't ever actually happen. It's not a natural phenomenon for fire to fall down from the sky. And the point is, this is an act of God. This is something God needs to get involved with for it to happen. And in Elijah's case, especially so, wet wood, drenched wood does not burn. If the tree is still alive and is still full of sap, and that's not the kind of thing you want to use for a campfire. You're not going to get very far with that. And so Elijah was making the point very clear. He's like, look, guys, I cannot start this fire. This is not. There's nothing I can do about this. I'm not your deliverer. I'm not the one who's going to rescue you. I'm not the one who's going to make this all, better for you. That's not really my job. That's not my purpose. And so the wood is wet, and so he's saying, if this is going to happen, it has to happen from God on high. God is the one who has to deliver us in our time of trials. God is the one who has to come through. Only he can come through in the dark time. Only he can deliver. Only God can prove himself bigger than our obstacles and our challenges. And certainly that he's stronger than other gods. And so there's a way to put this, my mess and yours, whatever, and think about what you're going through in your own life. Our problems, our challenges, what we're going through is this drenched wood, right? We have these drenched wood, we have this soaked lumber, and we kind of wish that God would come and consume it and take us on to the next point. But only, and again, the point is, only God can start that fire. Only God can do that. See, the hope at the end of the day is when God finally does let his fire fall, is that his people will give him praise. And so this is exactly the point. Elijah is saying God needs to win this contest. God needs to come through for his people. And his prayer is that God will display his power. In the chapter he prays, so that the people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back to them. And so again, this isn't about Elijah becoming more popular among the people. It was about God becoming more popular with the people. And it wasn't a time of trial. This reminds me of what Jesus says in the New Testament when he raises Lazarus from the dead and he prays in the Gospel of Luke. He says, Father, I thank you that you have heard me, and I know that you always hear me. But I said this that they may believe that you sent me. In other words, he's very clearly doing this for an audience. He's doing this so that other people will see and give testimony that God is good, that he is true, and that he has this power. And so Jesus wasn't afraid of doing things for the spectacle if it was going to bring him glory and if it was going to turn the people back to him. And in other words, he was validating the message. While some might think in that story a little bit harsh that Jesus waits until Lazarus has already passed away and then comes, this is literally the point. Yes, now that he has passed away, and it's been longer than the traditional 3 days, the superstition was that after 3 days the spirit would leave the body. This is, again, also why Jesus was in the ground for 3 days, so that it couldn't be said that he was in there shorter than the amount of time before the spirit left. So he comes after it's very clear he's dead, he's not coming back, and they proclaim there's going to be a stink when you roll that stone away. But he prays so that they may know. Jesus doesn't have to say these words. And it's the same thing for Elijah. He's saying so that these people will know, God, that you are doing something amazing. And I was just thinking about this for all of us. We're going through challenging times right now. Some of us may have lost our jobs. Some of us are just overcome with anxiety. What is the next season going to look like? How are we going to reach it? Will I reach the next season, or will I be one of these casualties? What's going to happen with my family? What's going to happen with my career? All of these scary and challenging questions that make a big challenge for you and I are before us now, especially in this season. And so I think this is such a good reminder for you and I. Our struggles might just be another opportunity for God to show his power strong, for God to reveal himself in our lives. And it may not be a huge, spectacle, a huge miracle that he does, but as we turn around and look back, we can see that he was at work. This is that verse from Romans. God works everything together for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. God does bring about good from our messes. God does bring about good from our tragedy. But it's important for us to look for it. It's important for us to look at our mess and say, yes, God can do something. And so I think it's important for us to remember that our struggles may just be another opportunity for God to show himself strong. We have lots of challenges ahead of us. We have lots of struggles ahead of us. Many of us might even have sickness ahead of us. But we need to know that the way that we come through this is with God's help, right? God's the one who raises the dead. God's the one who has to light the fire, even in our drenched wood. Not Elijah, it wasn't him, and not you or I. It's God who lights the fire. So in the end, I pray that we are all looking for ways for God to come through, because, again, I can't start the fire. You can't start the fire. Billy Joel saying, we didn't start the fire and we can't. It's on the Lord. And so I pray that we are at least looking in that direction to see that salvation when it arrives. So hope in God. There are trials around us. There are tests around us. But we can be those who faithfully still carry a witness for Jesus. And I think that this is just another season where we're invited to do that. So thank you. Hold on. Hang on. Call out to God in this time and see the salvation of the Lord. So thanks. There'll be more.